listen to more Coldplay, the world go to shit. That's how we're starting.
Did you say Coldplay?
That's the
lyric.
That's the lyric. I've been listening to more
Purvis, you
Coldplay.
casual.
Coldplay, the world cold as shit.
That's why we were saying
That is
Coldplay should open for Travis.
That is such a Mortal Kombat ass bar, and that it is so bad it's wonderful. Like I unironically think it's good because it's so bad. Like, and that song hits.
Upset.
Welcome to the show. I'm upset. $1,000 on my.
Okay, I'll take.
What if I
one.
just did this like all episode? Like
we're gonna have a Jasper theme episode. We're all just gonna make quick jokes,
or as we call it, the cozy cast.
Do you mean puns?
Yeah, this is cozy. Okay.
Yeah. Jasper makes puns, not jokes. I think that is as someone who makes jokes, I resent that. Like,
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's like, let me be clear. Jokes, puns.
It's more like jokes, poetry, haiku. Riddles. 100 feet of dog shit, and then puns.
But still below that is whatever Carrot Top's doing.
You mean getting ripped?
You're right. I forgot about that.
Dude,
actually,
ripped Carrot Top is the scariest thing that has ever existed, and I think
he got that carrot cake.
Why do I not know what's going on?
Never mind.
It's too white for. It's too white.
It's far too white. How is everyone doing? How is everyone doing?
He thought I was like losing my mind.
Yeah, Purvis is like, am I having a stroke? Like, which I fear is going to be a theme of this episode. Like
Brandon and I talking about
my own show.
Brandon and I talking about white men with inanimate object names: Carrot Top, Buckethead. Fucking like,
dude, I do fucking love Buckethead, Bumblefoot.
Bozo
the Clown. I don't know. I tried.
It's over.
How is everyone doing this week?
All right, we're living. How are you all?
Doing okay.
I'm doing good. I'm hyped. RTJX tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
Nah.
Big show for you.
Big show. Have a big...
What is 3 songs you need to see?
Well, they're doing Run the Jewels 3. So I'm really hoping they do Stay Gold.
Okay.
I am going to bawl my eyes out to Thursday in the Danger Room.
Understandable.
And the other song I really hope they do is Don't Let the Devil In. The song off Michael.
One.
Yeah, the song on Michael that has OP on it. That's the other one I hope they really do.
Okay, but really dope.
Yeah, so I'm excited. I'm also going to the Killer Mike meet and greet on Saturday. So I'll be here to show off any kind of goodies I have from that. And yeah, so big week for me.
Cross fingers for your signed shoes.
I'm hoping.
Gonna make it happen.
Yeah.
Call that an open mic.
All right. So speaking of which, we have some insane things to talk about this week.
We have one major release in my opinion.
Dude, this release is major to me. This is going to be my morning.
This came out of nowhere.
This came out of nowhere. This is going to be my morning tomorrow. This is probably the best thing that can launch the day of a Run the Jewels concert. Like, for me.
Get you really hyped up. What we are talking about, we are here for the return of Lil Wayne.
Lil Wayne mixtape season. Oh, yes, my God.
Mixtape season.
It's like Obama's in office again. Like.
The good old days.
We're getting Modern Warfare. Is it 3?
I'm glad that's one of the highlights.
Yeah.
But yes.
We're back in 2012, baby. No, I'm super excited for this. I am. Like, I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that, especially recently, Lil Wayne has all hits. Mm-hmm. But like I think he's been on an upswing. And 2, I just want it. Like, that's just what I'm in the mood for.
Dude, I've said this a long time ago. For me personally, Lil Wayne is one of the most lyrical rappers I've ever seen.
He's 100%. Like, on a bar level?
Punchline, exactly.
Yeah, on a bar-to-bar level. I think he's, like, really, like, because, like, I've always said, like, there's kind of, like, a spectrum, and on one end you have, like, your Kendrick Lamar types, your Nas types, who, like, Lupe Fiasco, who are, like, dense, lyrical storytellers, very technical on an emotional level. And then on the other side, you have, like, technical on like a technical level and just like cleverness as opposed to insight, and that's like Lil Wayne. I think Lil Wayne is like the GOAT at like that style of lyrics, and I think like those two things are equal in my mind. Like,
oh
yeah. I don't.
I
like if you're at the level Lil Wayne is at, that's S tier lyricism as far as I'm concerned, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And the thing is that like he always has at least a few bars in every verse that I like.
I fully agree with that.
I'm excited. I'm excited.
We've been saying we're gonna have a Lil Wayne episode for a while, so maybe
next week.
One coming up real soon.
Yeah, next week. But first we actually have to do your album.
Yes, we'll do that as well.
Yeah. September switch up. September switch up in action.
That's a good name.
That's what we're calling it. Switch up September, where we all just like pass an album to the left. Like
Jasper decided to grab like one of the most classic albums of all time.
Yeah. Your favorite artist's favorite album. Like
I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that eventually.
Yeah.
First we gotta get through the news, some other releases, some other albums, I should say. Georgia.
Because there is at least I have another project I'm pretty excited for too.
Okay.
Yeah,
sure.
I'm excited for the Rome Streets Nose Candy 5. I love Rome Streets. I'm like very into his mixtapes. He is he's like one of the other members of Griselda that I really latched onto, kind of like you do with Boldy James. Even though I also love Boldy James now, but like Rome Streets like didn't take me any convincing. Like after that verse on, I get him and Stove God Cooks confused, but both of them they're fantastic. So
love. And funny enough, you mentioned Boldy James will be on this album.
Yeah,
actually, so
no, that makes sense.
A really good feature set.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
It's funny we haven't talked about Griselda for a while. I think it's time.
Give it time. Give it time. Spoiler alert for later in the episode. It's
literally like 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert for the recommendation segment. Get it time. Like
that's crazy that I did one too. But anyway, so that's going to be a super exciting release, and we also have Georgia Smith coming out with "Falling or Flying," a little bit of R&B in your life.
That's
we
fun.
have a bunch of singles, yeah.
No.
I didn't know this existed, but Lyrical Lemonade is apparently going to release an album.
That's interesting.
Then this is going to be the second single.
What was the first one?
I have no idea. I tried finding it, and I don't know. I'm
so. I have a little bit of news about this.
Okay, Jasper, let's hear it.
They are having a anniversary concert this Sunday.
Yeah, I heard about that at the Salt Shed. Is it?
Yep.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're the day after Run the Jewels.
Yeah, I'll tell you all how it is next week.
Oh, you're going to that this weekend?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Interesting
indeed.
Yeah, I have no idea who's going to be there or what it's going to be like, but we will see.
I'm trying to think who's due.
I saw one Instagram post about it. That's like all the information that I have.
That's kind of crazy.
I know it's Salt Shed.
This is the second single release. We have Kid Cudi and Lil Durk coming out with Guitar in My Room, and I believe there is a music video that will be releasing with the song. So that's interesting. I would have never asked for this collab, but I'm not upset with the collab.
Yeah, no, that's exactly how I feel. Like, both these artists are very hit or miss. Kid Cudi's not very hit or miss for me, but like, Kid Cudi's a little hit or miss for me. Lil Durk's very hit or miss for me. So like, I definitely could see this as something that just passes over me, but at the same time, like, I'm there for at least a spin or two.
At least check it out.
Yeah.
Another collab coming out this week is Rick Ross and Meek Mill. 2 names I haven't said in a very long time. They'll be releasing the song Shaq and Kobe, and I'm not gonna lie, I don't think either one of them are good representations for Shaq and Kobe in the game. Just doesn't work for me.
Yeah,
but it'll be interesting.
Yeah, no, they're not. Maybe Rick Ross and Shaq. Maybe
I could but like
I'll give that a
those are the big black niggas that could be Shaq.
Okay, right. Yeah, Jaleel is Shaq.
I would say Jaleel
doing a backflip and getting a 3-pointer.
Just the way it's named sounds like it reminds me of Bad and Bougie, and it's like, Shaq and Kobe, Bad and Bougie. It's like, come on, this is going to be something. I don't know if it's going to be what anybody asked for, but it'll be something.
It's going to be something. It's going to exist. I'll say that. Yeah, we got that coming out. We have a single by the baby coming out.
Wild.
Keep it.
Wild. What's it called? It's called
Trickin'.
Oh God, I hate this.
I saw it. I just started laughing. I'm sorry.
Why do we allow this to happen?
I just want to see the responses on Twitter. That's all. That's all I'm here for.
Why do we allow the baby to make music?
They're illusions, Michael. A trick is something a whore does for money.
Okay.
Although I do fear that if we banned DaBaby from making music, that puts him on the trajectory to podcast so fast.
No, he would do stand-up comedy like he's tried to do.
He did mention stand-up comedy. I feel like that would go much worse
in
the rapping career. But
I love that. I love this weird nightmare world we live in.
Darkest timeline.
Look, we have much worse going on in our lives than DaBaby being back.
I mean, I don't know. DaBaby is top 15, maybe not top 10. You know, like
I'm trying to pay for a house here.
Climate change, more like interest rates, the increment rise of fascism, and then DaBaby.
Whatever tropical storm is like the flavor of the week, and then DaBaby is like right underneath it.
Air quality, water scarcity.
We could go on.
Police brutality, mass incarceration.
That's another route you could take.
There's a lot of shit going on. But still, DaBaby's up there. I think he's a threat and he needs to be dealt with. Like, I'm kidding. Don't kill me. Like
a threat. Jesus Christ.
Don't go to Walmart.
You just went from like a solid 5 to like 100. I'm like, all right, bro. Now the FBI's watching.
That's like that video, that animated short I sent you guys, where it's like Cardi going over his set time and he's like floating during location, and they shoot him down with a plane. Like,
you gotta take him out.
Take him out.
He's doing too much. He's going too high.
I agree with that though. Like,
I'm not upset with you. I'll say that.
All right,
let's go. On to the other news. Even though we're getting the terrible news of DaBaby, we are getting a really good collab. This is the third collab with Six Lack, whatever you want to call them, and Jesse Reyes. This is the third song together. The other two are hits, honestly. So I'm very excited for this.
Yeah, I like Six Lack.
I'm most excited.
I like Six Lack. Yeah, I like. I don't know what to call it, but I call him Six Lack. Yeah, Six Lack is good.
Absolutely. So,
and then
I'm excited for that.
Let's take a little trip to Atlanta.
Atlanta is the place to be. We have Lotto coming out with another song called "It's a Party" with Baby Drill. I'm expecting a club bop with a lot of twerking. Atlanta.
Love it.
Bottled up in a song.
Honestly, like, whenever I hear people be like, New York's better than Chicago, LA's better than Chicago, I'm like, only one who can argue with us is Atlanta. And maybe Miami, but not recently. Like,
definitely not recently. Jasper, what's this?
This is something pretty cool.
Added. Okay.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So on Monday, I went to see a pretty cool film. Stop Making Sense is the first ever full featured concert film ever made, and it's a film by the Talking Heads. Okay. It was the first time. It was the first time camera work had ever been integrated from people on stage into like a full length feature concert film. Prior to this, there's a camera at the back, and it's a static shot of the stage the full time. And this came out in 1984. It's back for the 40th year anniversary. It's in IMAX at certain theaters. Okay. An hour and a half long. It's basically their like super iconic set, all the hits. Everything is just super sharp, crisp. It's actually been remastered and curated by A24. So
interesting.
Really, really good, interesting thing. They've got it up by me at Crown Village, so like northwest side, but they've got it at a couple different theaters in IMAX, and it's definitely worth seeing. Definitely.
That's interesting. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I love a good concert movie. Like when they're really well put together, they're very good. I remember starting to stray with genre a little bit, but Green Day's Bullet in a Bible.
Yeah,
was a concert film I really liked.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, it's that's very cool. I had no idea what this was.
Yeah, this is definitely up there. It's super cool. Just seeing David Byrne go and just be as weird as possible on stage for an hour and a half is iconic, and I love it.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. Was it upscaled or like actually shot over again in like better footage?
Oh no. Well, so it was shot on film, and the thing about film is that it doesn't adhere to the same like resolution standards as like digital. So depending on how the film is processed, it can be output into a massive digital file. So it's original film footage from '84 that's been basically cleaned and then color graded really, really nicely, and then output for IMAX. Yeah. So it depends on like the millimeter size of the sensor that it was shot on and the size of the film.
Yeah, do you know what the film size was?
I think it was originally 70 millimeter that it was shot on. I don't think I think what I saw was a digital conversion though, because it was a standard theater, but it was an IMAX system. Okay. Super good, great color, great sound, great everything, worth seeing.
Something I was thinking about the other day was I was just bored. I was working at home. I was just like, I gotta put something on the TV while I write, or I'll go crazy. Mm-hmm. And I found like pretty much every set at Riot Fest in like 4K quality, like super up close, like very reasonable on YouTube. And I just went down this rabbit hole of finding like lives, like really, really decent, like on the ground footage of all these sets, and it's really cool.
Yeah, that's something that I still. This could be a whole tangent. I don't want to do it, but that's something that I still take a lot of issue with is like actual preservation and distribution of concert footage, because there's so many live shows that I want to be able to like own or have access to watch regularly that just don't make it to market. Like I want a video of a live 2007 from 2007, and it's impossible to find. And there's just like a bunch of artists who just don't release stuff like that. I think it's kind of a shame.
There's a if you go into like the weird hippie like jam band culture, they have a very like there's an entire website dedicated to that, to like preserving.
Oh yeah, like if you like Fish, like you'll find that shit.
Yeah, if you like Fish, you'll exactly. And I think like I think if we could maybe do like a centralized movement within like music fans, because like I think the only issue with like these things is that they're on YouTube, so they're at like the whim of Google,
Fund the Internet Archive. There, I said it.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I would rather have our money go to the Internet Archive than bombs.
Or Disney.
Or Ukraine. Like, well, anymore.
Real.
Like.
Okay.
Or fucking to fucking police the officers. Give me high quality Turnstile concerts. I don't need police.
Fine. Allow it. Just allow it.
Purvis is very tired all the time.
Purvis understands the Turnstile hype too, so it's a perfect storm.
I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
That's actually really dope. I didn't know any of that. In terms of news, there's not much.
No.
It's been a very slow week. There's like one major news that I wanted to bring up is that Beyonce brought out Megan Thee Stallion in Houston. Very huge concert for them, and rumored doing a tour with her like officially. So I think that'll be really dope and like a great introduction back into this new Megan, this post-trial Megan.
I agree.
How much more famous and well known does she need to get before she can just, like in the doc here, just go by Megan and everybody will know it like they know Beyonce?
She's been that since the start of this podcast.
You think so?
I was gonna say I feel like if I hear Megan, I'm gonna think of her, especially in the circles that we're in. If it's about hip hop, Megan's her. I don't know anyone else.
Yeah. Also, I don't know if you all saw it, but true, yeah. I don't know if you all saw it, but she also has a Hot Cheetos collab.
Yeah, we talked about it last week.
Right, we did. That's what yeah.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Her name's getting everywhere, dude.
Yeah, she's crazy. Yeah, but no, this is gonna be really, really cool. I love that. I mean, I was just listening to the Savage remix the other day, and it's like, the Savage remix is better than the original. I said it, like,
which is insane to say.
Yeah,
not like it's a bad take, but like, that's a big deal.
No, because like the Savage is a great song. Like the original is already like a great song, right? This is gonna cost Rachel a lot of money. Like, like Rachel's gonna be like, God damn it!
but she's gonna go anyway, and she's gonna love it.
There's zero chance I'm not at this show. Like,
I would 100% want to go to this show. I'm upset that I missed Beyonce last time. I don't want to miss something like that again.
No.
But
all right.
Another amazing black woman in the industry right now dropped an album last week.
Yeah. Did we all listen to Scarlet?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I listened to it like twice.
Once.
Yeah.
Once.
Yeah.
Once and a half, I guess, technically.
Yeah. All right. We're going to do this. We're trying a thing where we do a review, but it's not the whole episode. Like,
right. High speed.
We're trying to do like a 5-10 minute. 5 to 10 minute. What did everyone think? Because, like, I don't know. Like, on one end, I think this is her best album. But the thing is, I've come out of every Doja Cat album disappointed.
Okay.
And I came out of this one disappointed, but, like, less than other ones.
Was it disappointment for the same reasons?
Just that I think she can be doing better. That's all. Like, I think there are some, like, really strong highlights on this album. And I do not think the misses are nearly as, like, generic and, like, just bland as, like, the misses on her last few.
Okay.
Like, Wet Vagina, I think is, like, a fun idea and, like, a fun turn of phrase. But I just don't think it comes together. And, like, I'll take that over any, like, throwaway pop bop that she had on, Hot Pink. You know what I mean?
Mm.
But no, I did think that there were some, like, really solid tracks on this. I really liked Go Off. I really liked Agora Hills. I really liked the freestyle at the end. I really liked Balut. I love Attention. Attention is probably in my top 10 singles of the year. Love Demons, Paint the Town Red. And, like, I like Fuck the Girls, but, like, there was a thing you mentioned when we were talking about it that I think is 100% true, and that is that she really hits on that theme of, like, fuck the haters a lot, and, like, it wears out its welcome, in my opinion. I definitely think the album would have been more interesting if it was more Demons flavored and less Attention flavored. And I just said that's one of my favorite tracks of the year, but, like, I think, it just doesn't scale.
I'll jump into it building off of that because that was one of the main points. That was the first point I think I brought up to you when we texted about it. I genuinely do not like this, or I usually do not like this, I would say, but I do like it this time. She put the leading singles at the beginning of the album, which sometimes I don't like. I feel like they either should be on the album at all or kind of be like at the end or dispersed in where it works. But it opens up with the two singles. So it was actually a very nice, welcoming lead into the rest of the album.
Yeah.
Because I felt familiar with the music in a sense. Because for Doja Cat, I don't think the music is typically for me or people of my demographic that are like me. So I'm trying to get in the mind space of like, okay, think of it like maybe not as Purvis, but like just analyze the music for what it is.
Yeah.
And so it actually got me to warm up to the album. And the first thing I noticed was like the whole theme, the whole conversation about this album before it released was this whole debate about like, is it demonic and all this other stuff.
And that was just like, not there.
It literally wasn't the album at all.
Yeah.
It was the two singles.
Like even Demons comes across a lot less like actually satanic in the context of the albums. And it's literally called Demons. Right.
It's like what I said about the video where it's like, I really like the idea that there's a demon on your ceiling and it's flexing on you. I just bought a limousine. Like, all right. Cool.
Right.
Yeah.
It's in such a light tone when you put it that way. And in my personal opinion, if you take away all the visuals that came with the release of this album, there is no point where you would even say or even come up with the claim of like, oh, this turns like a satanic theme or demonic theme or whatever. Yeah, I feel like that wouldn't even come up.
Yeah, I agree with
99% of the time there never is. It's just all it's all illustrative to sell stuff because people will find it controversial or because they like the aesthetic of it and they want to borrow it.
Yeah. And she even mentions it in the album because like even though I listened to it once, I listened very deeply off of like what I genuinely like. I think 97 was my first song. I was like, damn, I really like this song. Go Off was really dope. Moving on to Attention, that was the big one. There was actually, it seemed like, not necessarily a love song, but themes of relationships starting to come up towards the end of the album. I was like, oh, this is really dope. But it just didn't really hold any weight for me. I don't know.
I think that's fair. Like, I think like it's also like I like the sound a lot more, but I think it wears out its welcome. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like by the end of it, like me and Rachel were like, we should turn this off, and then we were like, oh, there's 2 more songs, right? Like it's not a fun listen, you know. I think like there are some solid highlights. You know, I think the singles are great. I really like Agora Hills a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Go Off, as you said. I think the freestyle that the album ends on, I think it has. See, the thing is, I think Paint the Town Red is like not just like, oh, it's comforting because we know it, and it is good in its own right. I actually think it's a legitimately good opener.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I think like if it wasn't a single, we would still be here like, oh, this is a really solid opening track. And I think the album closes really strongly too. But like I think it just kind of meanders. It gets to some good parts, but like and it doesn't get as like lame and forgettable and mass produced as her last few albums, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But a great album that does not make. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I really like that this album moved away from being so much of a meme. Like a lot of her other stuff. I know that it's popular, but the song Ain't Shit off of Planet Her, I hate that song.
No.
Just like everything about it, it's like the tone is very mocking and just like it takes itself so unseriously that it's like why listening to this if it seems like you don't care about it, so why should we? Like that kind of thing.
Ooh, that's a good point.
And I don't get that feeling at all with this album. I mean, there are parts where it does dip into being generic, but I think there's a lot of stuff on here musically that is much more in the vein of stuff that I would personally want to listen to. I really like Paint the Town Red and Demons. FTG is okay, a little repetitive. 97 I really like Agora Hills. Like I think musically that's a strong track.
Yeah.
And then obviously Attention. I also like Balut towards the end as well.
Yeah, Balut's a solid track. And I also think the freestyle is really strong.
Yeah,
I don't think it actually is. It does not sound like a freestyle. It just sounds like a good ass song.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot here to like,
but there's not a lot to love.
Right, exactly. And I hope that there's momentum behind that to make the next one even that much better.
Because the reality is that she's a known quandary. Like she's gonna generate the streams. She's gonna generate the revenue. So there will be another album.
Yeah, and she's been doing the Tyler the Creator thing of an album every 2 years, pretty much like clockwork. So maybe by 2025 we see something absolutely banger.
And who knows? Maybe this is her cherry bomb.
That is very possible.
Yeah. That'd be crazy.
I think almost.
Even though I don't think it completely lines up, because Cherry Bomb is worse than Tyler's other projects, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think this would be more like her Flower Boy, just in the sense that it's like it's a tonal shift and it's a pivot into like a new style.
That's fair. That's fair. But yeah, no, it's a good effort. There's a lot to like. There's not a lot of love, and it does get a little annoying and overstays its welcome, in my opinion.
It's long.
Yeah, there are definitely entire tracks that could have been cut.
57 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. This thing should have been a tight 40. And
it could have been.
I did like the redone album art.
Me too. Yeah, I think it's much less generic.
Yeah. No, I really like the redone album art. And like, look, I think she sounds good through all of it. Her bars come through. Like, I think, I think it's true that Doja Cat is just like on a rapper level, very talented. But we just got to see that come through on a project, which is like, and the thing is that when you're in the pop world, there's like double the pressure to just like make the singles,
Mm-hmm.
And
that is fair.
That's why, like, I don't care that she's making a break with that. I think that part of the industry is very seedy and gross, But yeah, no. Do we want to just give? Do we want
quick rating? I guess.
Yeah. Do you want to just do a quick grade?
Sure. Jasper.
Jasper, do you want to go first?
You want to open up since you spoke last?
I would. Yeah, sure. I would give this I guess I'd give this like a B minus, maybe if I'm feeling harsh. But I think that there's like a lot here to work with. It's just it needs to be refined, curated a little more, and then I think that the instrumentation and the musicality is there. It's just it needs stronger subject matter and not just fuck the haters. And fuck the haters would be fine if she weren't the one who necessarily instigated it. So having that context also changes my opinion a little bit. But at the same time, like it's cool that she's coming out and saying like, yeah, I can actually make a rap project and people will like it'll be taken somewhat seriously. But at the same time, it's like when you stir the pot, it's not necessarily like all good for you.
My thing is that like I just can't fault her that hard for being the one who instigates because I think she's right. Like
I agree.
And that's the thing, right? Is like I'm just the kind of person where like if I think she's the one who's being correct, it's like, well, you know, like I think her fan base is a little toxic, and I think calling it out is not a bad thing. Like
I agree. I personally really don't like when fans go after or artists go after their fans, especially if it's like on an individual level or they like make an example out of somebody. But in this case, it's not really that deep, so I don't think it's as big of a deal.
Yeah, I think it's weird to be very mean to a person, right?
Yeah.
But I think the way people behave in groups, I think not only like can be criticized, I think should be, right? And the thing is that like I just, I'm not going to. Sure, you could say like, oh, I don't like how she did it, but that doesn't change the fact that she's right.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Like it's like that's just how I feel, right? Like, yeah, that's fine, you can, but that doesn't change the fact that like, nah, people are weird and like really overstepping boundaries. And it was all like, I guarantee you it's all like a generated media cycle to generate hype for this album, right? But that doesn't make it wrong. Like,
no, definitely not.
Yeah.
I also just realized he's number 6 in the world,
Who?
according to Spotify.
Who?
In terms of
Doja
like,
Cat?
Yeah, in terms of like Spotify popularity.
Damn.
See, like, okay, so
That's
that was
wild.
going to be my next question, but I didn't want to like get too deep into the subject. I understand that I am not a part of the Doja Cat fan base or hater base because what she does doesn't really affect my music taste in the past. Like, maybe I'm missing it, but what has the fan base done that is deemed so terrible against Doja Cat? I don't really know.
Just like really
of
weird.
How much hate she has received in general.
The thing is that like, how many streams does she have, right?
Monthly listeners is 78 million.
Okay, so 78 million, right? The thing is that like maybe 1% of her fans will tweet at her constantly, right? Shit like
that's still a lot of people.
That's like still like right. That and like it's just shit that like, believe it, like another artist that goes through this a lot is Taylor Swift. Like people are constantly bombarding her about her sexuality, and it's like that stuff is coming from like a really innocent and defensible place. But put yourself on the other side where like millions of people are asking you if you're queer. And it's like, that's like not cool. Like that is like not a cool thing that we do. And with Doja Cat, like she's always been in like not insightful with a C, and like she's always been like doing stunts when she shaved her hair. People love to voice their opinion about that shit. And the thing is that if it's 1% of her fans, that's a stadium's worth of people sending her criticisms on her body, right? Yeah. I think when you put it in that context, I think everything she did is completely reasonable. And I also think that context is the truth. Like, and it's like, there's no getting around that, right?
Yeah, she also really kind of snapped back on some people regarding like, I guess the whole parasocial relationship thing going on, right? Where she basically called out fans for calling themselves like Doja Cat fans calling themselves kittens as like being like her.
That was the one where I'm like, that's a little silly. But
it is, it is. But at the same time, I understand.
But like, when she says like, you don't know me.
Right? Yeah, or like the frustration around somebody branding themselves around you when you don't, you're trying to shift or pivot your brand in some way to appeal to a different audience. And I think that's what she was doing. I think she's trying to say like, I'm not going to embrace this. I want people who I don't want people to see my fan base acting cringe and not give me a chance. That's how I saw it. Where it's like she wants to appeal to, who knows, maybe people like us who listen to more just rap music, right? It's like,
yeah.
And if we see this gaggle of like 15-year-olds who are all going crazy for it, then it's like, maybe we're not as inclined to give it a try.
Yeah. So that's my thing. Is it's the sense of scale. And the other thing is that, like, I don't know, I do think fans get extremely entitled. And I think
there's always a group in every fan base.
And the thing is that, like, the thing is that the group is that, you know, if it's like Star Wars fans, it's like it's like a million people. If it's a small percentage of Star Wars fans, it's a million people. You know, like I remember that Asian girl that was in The Last Jedi, right? And I'm like, I am like the eminent defender of that movie, but like, I thought she was good as the role. I thought that part of the movie was like the weak part. She got like tens of thousands of threats a day, right? And I get that that's like a step behind what like Doja Cat is doing. But it's just like that scale, right? It's just not something that if you're not experienced, like it's just overwhelming, right? It's like it's shit that like think of how often you look at your phone and like imagine if like really like disturbing shit was on your phone every single time you looked at it. It's going to change the way you think about people, right?
Sure.
And like, yeah, I kind of like that people are bringing their fan bases to heel a little bit because I think they need to be. You know, I think people get I think this culture, I'm going on a rant. This culture is very obsessed with like ownership, right? And it has to be like a part of you, right? You have to own it. You have to dominate it to a certain extent. And the thing is that like, in like the social media age, it's less like, oh, I want to own the art. It's more like I want to own a piece of you, you know? And like, listen, there are some artists who like have managed that relationship and they came out the other side feeling fine. Beyonce, we talked about her today, right? That is absolutely a dynamic there too. But like Beyonce didn't come up in chat rooms and shit like that, right? So it's a different world.
That's very true. I was going to say, what I have realized recently is because of what happened last week. Speaking on a name that we've just been talking about, Taylor Swift is like all over social media right now because she's dating Travis Kelce.
Dude, I've seen like, so many hilarious memes about it.
It's to the point where Bleacher Report, understanding the Bulls, I mean, not the Bulls, Jesus Christ, the Bears suck and the game was so bad, Fox literally turned it off of cable.
Yeah.
I get that. And there wasn't that many highlights. But, like, the fact that he scores, does the fucking Soulja Boy dance for a celebration, it is all over social media within a second because it instantly cuts to Taylor Swift after he does the celebration. And then, like, a day later on TikTok, there's people in her fan base that are, like, saying that he stole the dance from her because she had a video when she was younger doing it, thinking that it was her dance.
No.
And I'm like, okay, I get it. Some fan bases have some crazy people in it.
Yeah, and the thing is that, like, even if it's just 1%, it's a massive amount.
Exactly.
Right.
Especially for someone like Taylor Swift.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah. And, like, Taylor Swift is, like, an example where, like, the people doing it have, like, far less malicious intent than someone like Doja Cat, I would say, right? Like, I feel like Doja Cat has gotten a lot of unfair shit ever since she came up, right? Because she's a meme. Oh, by the way, we're doing
the game as
meme. By the way, we're doing grades. C. Like.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Yeah. Yeah, I give C. I'm not gonna do the plus. I feel like if I gave Tizo a plus, and I can't give this higher than the same as Tizo. This has to go.
Oh, Tizo's better?
I'd say.
Okay. I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah.
All right, Jasper. Let's make a hard shift to
hard
debatably
pivot.
One of the greatest albums of all time, and I didn't know.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the text message?
Message?
The one that I got a screenshot of.
Yeah, I sent Jasper a screenshot yesterday. We're doing a deep dive on it's Switch Up September, a thing we just made up, where we all listen to albums from different genres. Last week was Turnstile. That was mine. Now we're doing Jasper's, which is Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. One of the most well-revered albums of all time, and rightly so.
And I had never heard it.
Yeah. To be honest with you, though, like I'm not someone who has a whole lot of contact points with Pink Floyd. This is not my first time hearing the album, but like, I'm not a heavy Pink Floyd. Like, if you asked me to name my favorite rock bands, Pink Floyd would not come up.
Mm. Well, Jasper,
yeah,
how are we gonna run this?
Yeah, so that's what I'm kind of curious about. Just based on what you said there. So, as far as the album goes, Brandon, you'd heard it before. Purvis, you hadn't. But are either of you familiar with the band Pink Floyd? As far as like some of the history, some of the other music, the projects, other hits, things like that.
I definitely know. I know enough to know that I don't know a lot, but like I know about The Wall. I know everything about The Wall and the movie with it. I know about this. I know about what's his name? Roger Waters. Yeah. I know about Roger Waters. You know, I know about all the Pink Floyd lore. I've just, you know, my dad had 2 Pink Floyd albums, this and The Wall, and that's like really all I listened to.
That's the starter pack. Yeah.
Yeah, and then like I've listened to other Pink Floyd stuff because of my cousin Alan, and it just doesn't hit me.
Gotcha.
You know, like it's not. I think Dark Side of the Moon is a spectacular album, but like Pink Floyd is just not my cup of tea.
Purvis?
I mentioned already, I have no experience with Pink Floyd. I knew the band exists. That's my extension of like knowledge.
He knows it because of the Pusha T lyric. Rock star like Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
I did not know it because of Pusha T. It's funny because one of the most interesting things I said over the week, just like analyzing the album, I realized I never listened to classic rock at all. Yeah. In terms of any bands, any groups, anything in general. My point of reference for rock music has, I'm not going to say unfortunately, but so far has been heavier rock. It's been more upbeat, faster. Because I have no experience with rock, I almost want to say like screamo, even though I know that's not it.
Yeah. So the thing is that, like, at least on the show, right? Because I think this is interesting. Because you said, I don't even really consider this rock music, which I think for someone who has your limited experience based on this album, like I get. I don't think that's an insane take. I think it's a bit of a wild take, but I don't think it's an insane take. But to me, that's crazy because like, Metallica, which you listened to last year, that's metal. That's like thrash metal.
Right.
That is, you know, a very specific cut of something. And Turnstile is hardcore, which is like not only like it's a subsection of punk, which is a subsection of rock, right? So it is like a little ways downstream, you know, on a genre. From a classic rock. So this is much more of like, when people say like classic rock, this is much more of what they're talking about. Although I agree, like especially the first half of the album, like it's much more synthesizers and spacey than it is, you know, rock. It's really not until Money that you get like a real rock vibe.
Yeah. So what this is actually considered is classic rock tends to be more of like the traditional like maximalist American style a lot of the time. So like Aerosmith, stuff like that. This is progressive rock or prog rock.
Yeah.
And prog rock is basically a subgenre that became popular in the UK in like the late 60s, early 70s, which is rock that's very heavily instrument oriented and draws a lot on like psychedelic tones and styles, but also incorporates jazz and blues and some funk elements to make it kind of more laid back in that way. So this is also like considered one of the greatest, probably the greatest example of psychedelic rock.
Yeah, I would say more than like prog, it's like very psychedelic. I understand like why people, especially at the time, called it prog. But like when I think prog, like one of the bands I was exposed to heavy as a kid was Rush. Yeah. And like Rush is like the prog, like, you know, if you ever listen to 2112, like they are the prog rock gods, right?
I would say personally, I think The Wall is more prog than this, but I think that Pink Floyd just being considered a prog band is what kind of puts it in that category.
Well, they definitely experimented with sounds. Like I think some of the things that we'll take for granted, probably not Jasper, but like I think the average listener, the unpaid nobody, if you will, would take for granted is that like those sounds that you hear in the album, those are like the first time those sounds have ever existed. Yes. Right? Those synthesizer sounds were like new.
It's funny you said that because believe it or not, that was one of the first thoughts I had while listening to the album. I was thinking, like, were they the first ones to ever actually make sounds like this? Because I just feel like when I think of the time period, these sounds that are coming out of the album, I wouldn't have even thought they had been or they were using at the time.
Yeah.
I thought that would be something that was newer, like in the 90s or like 2000s, the whole psychedelic vibe that came with it. But like, actually listening to the album for the first time, I didn't realize these sounds were like so dominant back then.
Yeah. And like, and Pink Floyd definitely took the ball and ran with it when it comes to psychedelic, but like they did not create it. Like Jimi Hendrix was like very psychedelic. You gotta do a Jimi Hendrix episode. That's gonna be fun.
Jesus.
Yeah, I mean they were contemporaries. It was a convergence on a sound that was being approached by people across different musical subcultures who all had different influences and still had retained a lot of the same styles and elements. They just executed that subgenre a little differently. Because Hendrix's big break, I guess, was what 66 to 69 pretty much. And Pink Floyd got started in 65 and this album is 73.
Yeah.
So you see kind of that progression throughout. And then The Wall, their second real staple album, I think a lot of people consider is 79. So you see that they developed through the 60s and then in the 70s released some of their best work. Animals too. 77.
Animals is the other one of their albums I like. And like not to report myself, but like I also think like what was in the air, or more accurately the water, in that time period is like a huge development, a huge thing for the sounds. Like I think the fact that like in the 60s and 70s people were experimenting with psychedelics so much, like I don't think if you haven't taken them, it's kind of hard to verbalize, but it's like that sound that is like created in a studio that makes that psychedelic sound, like that reverb, that lushness, like that's just how everything sounds when you're on those substances. Like it's just like a level to it. So I think like that drive to recreate like this thing that everyone was kind of doing in that moment, specifically people like Jimi Hendrix and Pink Floyd, or like Roger Waters and the people who were like involved. I think that's like a huge factor in it. Like I think like the drug culture at the time was like a massive thing.
Definitely.
I feel like that's almost, when I think of that time period back in the 70s, it's like my main point of reference, like the 70s show, for example. That entire vibe. The 70s show is like one of the main themes is the surrounding drugs. Like the whole scene of them sitting around the table is of them smoking. And most people don't know that till you watch the show. And so when I was listening to the album, hands down, any album I've ever listened to, it was this one where I was like, this is meant to be listened to on drugs.
Yeah.
It just makes sense.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. I mean, I think like there's definitely just like all music, like there's definitely a critical lens you can do to apply to this. Like when it comes to like theming and like composition and stuff, and I think this album runs away with it. But also like, there's a reason they use this album to soundtrack laser shows, which was the last time I heard this album, was because Triton College, the shitty little college in River Grove, did Laser Floyd up until like 2018-19. And I would partake and then go there. Like,
understand.
Yeah.
All right. So
that's kind of our introduction to Pinkish Floyd.
Yeah, I'm curious. What did you all think? Just like, I'm curious, how many times did you each listen to it? Because it's not the longest album. It's only 10 tracks, technically. It's like 45 minutes.
3.5 times this week.
Nice.
Because it is a quick listen.
It is a quick listen. I listened to this 2.5 times. I got through half of it like earlier today at work.
Yeah. It also is an impressively easy listen. Like for such a, I think like there is, and maybe it's a fear more than it's an actual real thing. But like I feel like a lot of these classic rock classic albums like in the annals of rock history, like I feel like there's like an intimidation to them. Like to me, I've always felt that about Led Zeppelin. You know?
Oh yeah.
I think this is a very accessible album.
Yeah, not all of Zeppelin is that easy.
Yeah.
That actually kind of jumps down my list here, but there's something I kind of wanted to touch on with that, which is verbosity in music versus musicality in music, right? And how they play off each other, and how some things might be one or the other, or some might be both. But I think that this falls very squarely on being more musical as opposed to being more verbose and having a lot to say with words.
No, it doesn't have a lot to say with words, but it does. I mean, I think like the biggest themes of the album are communicated with sound.
Yeah, so I'm curious, given that we generally review and deep dive albums that are very verbose, that there's a lot of communication through spoken word. How do we feel about just going for something that's I think really the total opposite in terms of format? What do we think of this?
I mean, I don't feel like it's the total opposite. I definitely think it's very different. And I am not starved for meaning out of this project. I feel like there's layers and layers of meaning, which I think is really the thing I'm looking for. Right? Like, I think I gravitate to hip hop because like I have an appreciation for lyrics for their own sake. But like what I'm really looking for out of any piece of music is a meaning. And, you don't have to have complex or even good lyrics. Not that this doesn't have good lyrics. I think like, tracks like Money, I think tracks like The Great Gig in the Sky have great lyrics. But like I agree, it's very musical, but I think because it is so rich in meaning and that meaning is not super subtle, like I think it doesn't feel like an album that I would categorize as like on one side of that spectrum. It's something I would categorize as both. Even though like critically I understand that there aren't a lot of lyrics on this album.
Yeah.
But like just like objectively, but I don't know. It didn't strike me as something that was like a binary.
For me, it says a lot with a little in terms of the actual spoken lyrics. But Purvis, I'm curious, what do you think as far as like where this falls in that way? Like, did you find that the instrumentation and just like the musical components that weren't spoken were enough in that way, or did you feel like you wanted more out of it in some way?
I mean, don't get me wrong, this album's phenomenal. I couldn't find a single flaw. So the way it's built and structured now, I genuinely enjoyed it. I feel like what rock music benefits from is live music. So when you're actually listening to music live, I think the instrumentation is more important than the words in some cases. And I feel like just like any other rock album, there needs to be periods in spaces within the album for the music to actually exist just as music, where that doesn't happen as much in hip hop. Like obviously there's beat switches, there's samples and things like that where the music can shine just as music, but I feel like hearing a guitar riff is just different.
It's just
and
different,
so it hits different and it just presents itself differently. And so I loved it, honestly. There would, especially at the beginning of the album, like you said, it's much more spacey. And I was actually thinking like last week how I was pushing back thinking like, oh, Turnstile would be that genre's version of Blonde. But then I was thinking like this kind of album, like, no, like Blonde is trying to be like this.
Yeah.
And I've never said that before, ever.
Yeah. Yep.
And so having that space in an album, it was nice. I genuinely enjoyed it. And like the words that they do get across, it lines up with the theme perfectly. Yeah. So it doesn't need to be more words, but I can definitely tell the difference from what we would normally review.
So I think that this album, because of the way it's laid out and the formatting, it's very easy to kind of give it meaning of our own, just in terms of what it's talking about or what it's not saying out loud. So I'm curious, like what themes did you both take away from it musically, lyrically, or some combination of the two?
Okay, I have two. And I think your whole thing about projection could be accurate, but I think I have a rock solid case. So first off, like I think one of the meanings of the album itself, this is going to be the uncontroversial one, although I haven't seen this as like a common talking point around the album. I think one of the themes of the album itself is like the idea of depth, is the idea of like things are more than they appear, right? And I think like that goes through every single song. The ones that are like Great Gig in the Sky, which has that amazing vocal solo. You know, the ones that are very spacey. I'm going to pull up the track list right now. Stuff like Money, all that stuff. I think like it's all about seeing like this depth to the world, right? And I think that's also like a theme that runs through psychedelics as a genre, is like that search for depth, that search for meaning. And I think it's like representative in the album art. Like that's what that prism is. Like it's, you see like the most basic thing that the imagination can like conceive of, which is like white light. And then you see the layers through it. Through the prism, it's the rainbow. There's all that within white light, right? Whoops. The other thing is I think, and this might be my projection one, is I think a lot of it is about how like capitalism has become our life in the modern era. Like I think there's a reason why like the opening sounds of the album are a heartbeat and then switch to a cash register, and then it does it again at the end of Great Gig in the Sky, which on the vinyl is when you flip it. So there's that reoccurring sonic motif of like the heartbeat being replaced by the cash register. And I think that's what that's meant to represent, is that like the fundamental driver of our lives is no longer like the beating heart in your chest. It's how much money you can spend, because realistically, like when you run out of money and you got to live under a bridge, your heart's not going to beat for much longer, right? So, and then like, you know, this idea is like very consistent with Roger Waters' like politics, which we'll avoid. And I think it's also like bubbles up to the surface on Money, which is when you flip the thing, right? So I don't think that is like the sole theme, but I think like of the one that I stepped away with the most, it's that one.
Purvis, what do you got?
I will do initial reactions and then kind of like my final conclusions in terms of what I thought the theme was about. As this is my first time listening to it, I completely fresh. I had nothing to go off of. Just like instant, it was small little ideas that would pop in my head. Nothing solid. I think I text you guys like this and immediately reminded me of like BoJack Horseman and like the themes. There's other places where I've heard music like this that I simply attach it to naturally.
Fame is totally a theme of this.
Yeah,
right.
Literally,
like the dark side of fame is absolutely another theme that like I can totally see someone like my little like communist heart listens to this and sees that thing. But I can definitely see like other people see different things, and I think the idea of fame is very much supported by the text. So I think the comparison to BoJack Horseman is not crazy.
Yeah, for sure. That's one of the main ones I had at the beginning. Another one I had at the beginning, and it does benefit off of having this space in the album for the music to just be music, is just the idea that trying to find the best way to word this. Essentially, I felt like the sounds that you hear in the album are meant to just be your day-to-day life. And so some of the things that we've already talked about, whether it be fame, money, whatever it might be, it simply is things like the rhythms that you go with in terms of your life, like other things that you just attach yourself to and you don't really realize is background noise. And so having that being the initial thought, it instantly reminded me of just like, okay, clearly Speak to You is about being born, because it starts off with a heartbeat, and then it naturally tells a life story and how you eventually retire, you become this person, yada, yada, yada. Once I completely got through the album, I decided to do research, which might have been a bad idea, because I wanted to see what the most Pink Floyd person had to say about Pink Floyd. And I found a Reddit page. And this man wrote a 10-page paper. Like,
Yeah, dude. If you think
and
people
I read
go,
it.
yeah, if you think people go hard for blondes, like you ain't seen shit, dog.
People have been going hard for this album for like 60 years.
Yeah,
dude. I sat there and read it because I was just interested.
No, yeah.
And like he breaks down every song, and I'm just like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
I get it. It is one of the staples to like history almost. This type of music can go on forever.
Yeah. So good news, you're both pretty much right on the money, but
I'm
basically
don't walk in front of your windows. There will be traps.
Don't say it's okay.
Money
it's okay.
was the one song I recognized. Don't ruin it for me.
Yeah,
it's already happened. It's too late. Yeah, so I mean, the album touches on a lot, and what I think is really interesting about it is how some themes are touched on just musically, while others are actually spoken about. So, yes to the heartbeat, yes to modern life, consumer culture, critique, everything else. But you've got stuff like On the Run, which is that first instrumental track.
Yeah.
On the Run is actually a reflection of fear of modern travel, specifically like going to the airport, stuff like that.
Which is crazy because this was 30 years before 9/11.
A long time ago.
Yeah, but back then planes were not reliable. You were looking at dual propeller planes. People died in plane accidents all the time.
Oh yeah.
So being a famous rock band and traveling by plane, you might be a little anxious about it. So
yeah.
I mean, everybody
especially because like
to Buddy Holly.
Yeah, that was especially because like the day the music died and everything, and Leonard Skinner.
Yeah, Leonard Skinner too. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah.
Another one that's real big on this that I want to get into as far as like some of the band history is mental illness, mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Syd Barrett was one of the original founding members of Pink Floyd, and he potentially was already a schizophrenic, but was very heavily into psychedelics and basically lost his mind over time. So I think by 1968, 69 was basically removed from the band. But he just became like a shell of himself. Would like sit there staring into space, and so there's a good amount in this. The lunatics are in the hall, in my hall, that whole thing. Brain Damage is a track. The entire thing is like that, and then also there's a section where it says, if the band you're in starts playing different tunes, I'll see you on the dark side of the moon. That actually happened, where Barrett was playing something on stage with them, and then just started playing something completely different while they were doing their thing, because he was just in his own world.
Yeah.
So there's
it was
a
different
lot
back
of,
then. Like it was a different world. Like
yeah. So one of the main things about it, which doesn't necessarily come across in the earlier part, I find, but comes across later, is that madness and like resisting the potential to slip into it. So like the idea that modern living can drive you to that. Anxieties about money, anxieties about travel, anxieties about just existing, the feeling that you're running out of time. The song Time is exactly that.
Yeah.
That's so, and I want to ask you both what your favorite and least favorite tracks are. Least favorite might not be fair.
Yeah, I don't really have a least favorite. Like because that's the thing, right? There are definitely tracks that don't make me stop and look at my phone and be like, "What the fuck is this shit? This is incredible," right? Yeah. Like Time, like because I'm very familiar with like Money, Great Gig in the Sky, some of the other ones that are on the back end of the album, Us and Them, which I really liked because I thought that was like a very clear, like distillation of some of the oldest ideas in political history. But like. Yeah, I think for my favorite, I think it's definitely The Great Gig in the Sky. I know it's like a very like cliche answer, but
you think your answer's cliche?
It's iconic. Mine's Time.
My answer's cliche.
Yeah, Time is also incredible.
I mean, mine is Money. It's literally it's the one song that I genuinely already did. I love that song. It's a great song.
Yeah, no, that's a classic song, and it's like so minimal from like a composition level. Right, that's something I really like about rock from the 60s and 70s. Like, especially go back, you listen to like old Stone stuff, right? Like it's like a 5-chord, like it's like a 5-note riff, like on a single chord. Like they're not even using power chords, right? Like and it still hits. It hits like crazy. So Money hits me on that, in that level too.
I always think it's really funny when reality TV uses a song like Money to lead into a scene. Like I think they did it in Pawn Stars or something where they're just like celebrating consumerism and it's like you don't really know what this is about, do you?
No. It's like when I was in high school I knew like a bunch of dumb jocks who like loved Nirvana. And like I saw one of them was like, yeah, my favorite song is In Bloom, and I'm like, my guy, that song's about you. Like
real.
Yeah.
Or it's like when the when the Dodge dealership uses Born in the USA for their 4th of July sales event. It's like, buddy.
Amazing.
Another really dope thing I actually wanted to bring up.
Yeah, there's something I want to bring up too. Yeah, but you go first.
Yeah. I was gonna say, now that we're talking about just like the track list and looking at it, it's very rare that I get this, and man, did it feel good. Having an album where the song flows into each other consistently is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yes.
When you do it right, oh my god,
it hits.
I love it.
Yeah. No, this almost feels like a score. Like there's a reason people have been trying to sync it up with Wizard of Oz ever since it came out, right? Like
and think about how much further they could have taken it if it weren't for the break to flip a record.
Yeah.
Right. Because like
they did it
we have an inevitable pause. It has to happen.
Yeah. And I think that's actually exactly like where I want to get to this, right? Because I think something we talk about like external pressures on on creativity, right? And like something that like leaves a really like bad taste in my mouth is like how short songs are now, right? And I think it all started with O Town Road, which was like a very short song, and the whole reason is because like artists are paid by the stream. So you make the song super hooky, you make it super short, so people are tempted to like do it over and over and over again. Like
Just from rock.
Yeah, exactly. Right?
A minute 30 seconds is all you need.
Yeah. So it's like that external pressure of streaming shapes the music in that regard. And then just because like at that point it's about getting on playlists, it's about like generating streams. You know, that's why albums get so long and they feel so scattershot. You know, you said I Want Rock, Pink Tape, you know, like that's like the external pressures, right? However, like that's not always necessarily a bad thing. I think you could also argue like the external pressures of like digital music made Run the Jewels, and also like things like Forever is a Mighty Long Time, which like makes use of the double album format in a way that you couldn't on vinyl because each side is as long as a flipped vinyl, right? So like, you know, it's not all bad. Like every single thing has like an action and a reaction. And I wonder, because I see the album like as like very intentional with that flip, right? Like it goes until the Great Gig of the Sky. There's the heartbeat and the cash register again. And then you flip it and then you're right in the money, right into that theme. And then it goes off and it becomes kind of like more of a rock album in like kind of the back half, in my opinion.
Mm.
And it makes you wonder
for the first half of the back half, for sure.
Sorry about that. But yeah, it's like you know, I want to know, like, do you think that was an external pressure by like having to make this on vinyl? Because that's just how albums were made back then, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to me personally, I think it feels intentional. Like I feel like having that front end go farther would have ruined the balance of the album, right? But, you know, that's the conditions by which it was made. So I don't know. I thought that was very interesting.
I totally agree. Yeah, because back then you're either pressing a single album like this or you're pressing a double album, which has to have pretty much exactly double the content to fit correctly on the physical medium.
Yeah, and anything you don't use, you have to pay for anyway.
Yeah, for people to buy. And no one, I don't think anyone has ever shipped a double album that only has one of the two sides filled.
Yeah.
I might be wrong on that, but I don't think that's the case. So it's about shaping the content to the format in a way that we just don't have to do today. Today you shape content to an algorithm.
Yeah. I mean, it's still shaping to the format in a certain degree. And like I think you see
like
it,
a physical form factor, I guess.
And I think you see it in like, I think like that CDs, like I think they gave us the deluxe because like it's a one-time purchase, and then like they were like, how can we get people to do it a second time? And then they came up with the idea of the deluxe album that really started to hit in like the 90s, early 2000s when it was like the CD. and then things got even more single driven with iTunes, and now it's even more. You know, like I have a theory that I think Travis like left Sheck West off of Fiend for that reason, and that kind of put ashes in my mouth on one of my favorite songs of the year because it's like
his verse goes hard.
Yeah, his verse goes so hard, and it's like, listen, he was left off for two reasons: one, to optimize the song for streaming, or two, because Travis had some mandate against having Cactus Jack artists on the album, and both of those are really shitty. Like, but the song hits. I'm not saying the song doesn't hit, but it's just like, you know, you see these external pressures, and then like, but I look at this, and I see it as a strength. You know, probably similar to like Because the Internet. You know, I see the way that because the internet used the world it was released into in its advantage, you know, I see this as similar in that regard.
After listening to this album, I went to go listen to Because of the Internet and Blonde.
Yeah.
Just because like it was the first album that I thought of.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah.
Yeah, so
one
other thing.
Yeah, tell us. Go on.
Oh, one other thing about the medium that I think is interesting, and kind of unique in that way is just the time in which it released and what the landscape of music is like then versus now. Because you look at where this album ranks in terms of critical acclaim, sure, but also in terms of sales, right?
Yeah.
This is the 4th best-selling album of all time. It goes Thriller, Back in Black, Whitney Houston, the Bodyguard soundtrack with I Will Always Love You on it, and then this, right? And it's like, to me, it's super interesting because we just don't live in an environment anymore that can ever foster numbers like this. It has claimed sales of 45 million copies.
Yeah.
No physical record, no digital album is even going to sell anywhere near that today. There's just too much variety and too much choice in the market, it feels like, just based on like the access that we have for one artist to gain that kind of like monolithic kind of swell, right? So I just think it's super interesting.
I think there's like one sampling error with those examples, though.
Hard to compare them, though.
I think
that's what I'm saying, though.
Yeah, I think like because the thing is like you know, if I bought a vinyl of Dark Side of the Moon right now, that would count, and this album's been out since *73.
Yeah,
you know,
100%. Yeah, there's a time thing,
and just like that time thing, right? And like. What's the newest album on that? Back in Black? That had like 20 years?
Back in Black but The Bodyguard is newer, 1992.
Oh, really? I thought Back in Black was like in the early 2000s.
No, Back in Black is from 1980.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so like the youngest album on that is As Old as Me. So it's like one like...
No, it's true.
Yeah, and like, look, even albums that like... Because we've all moved to streaming now, and even like pre-streaming, because we all moved to digital now. Like that's just never gonna happen. Even with albums like, you know, Smells Like Teen Spirit, who had like, you know, when that album released, people still bought it like physically. You know,
Nevermind is actually kind of close. It's got 26 million claimed sales.
Yeah.
So,
but like my point is that like now no one's buying Nevermind. You know. I mean,
no, it's true.
Nevermind is like a bad example, but like no one.
I mean, yeah. It's all about how like the streams compare to actual sales and what is the equation or whatever. But I think it's interesting because it also speaks to a time where the landscape of media was just not as diverse. Yeah. Right. Because this was your option. Yeah. And we just don't have that anymore. It's like people have so much choice to choose what they want to consume, and they could fall down the rabbit hole. Like we talked about the algorithm. The algorithm will cater to you what you want to listen to based on your taste, right? It's not like, oh, hey, this really good album came out. It's on that one radio station, so now you're going to listen to that one thing because it's that one radio station that you have access to. Yeah. It's just like there are factors that have put it. What's that?
I feel like it's a gift and a curse because I feel like there's a lot of positivity to have your options as well.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I just think it's cool that this emerged from such a dramatically different landscape, and yet we still can either relate to it or appreciate it or enjoy it today. Even though the conditions could not be more different.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree, and it's something we talked about when we talked about Master of Puppets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
where it's like
very different.
Yeah, well, very different, but also like, you know, these things have stood the test of time. You know, we're sitting here looking at Blonde like, oh, we know this is going to stand the test of time. You know, it's like the equivalent of a straight A student walking into the ACTs. Like, you know, it's going to do well, but you haven't gotten the scores back, right? It's like, so to see things that have truly passed it, and I don't think anything has passed the test of time better than this album, right? Maybe Thriller, like,
Right.
You know, and it's just like, and it is crazy. Like, this is every artist we love. This is like their favorite album, right? That was something I said to Purvis as we were talking about it. This is your favorite artist's favorite album.
Yeah, move over, MF Doom.
Yeah.
So yeah, with all that said, we could do a little track breakdown if we want to, track by track. Otherwise, we could just give it a rating, however you two are feeling.
I mean, I feel like we've talked about most of the tracks all the time.
That's true, yeah.
You know, because I think Eclipse is a good closer. Brain Damage, I really like. Any Color You Like is one of the ones that I always just like kind of cruise past. That's the thing, right? Like, this is like when you get to a certain caliber of albums, you're not talking about like skips. You're talking about which ones do you just kind of cruise past and which one are you like, hell yeah, money is on, right? Like, because that's me to this album. This is an album, and like this is maybe another reason why I haven't listened to it in 10 years. You know, is because like it is an album in the purest sense of the word.
You have to listen to it.
You got to listen to the whole thing. And like, listen.
It's a movement.
Listen.
It's the first movement and the second movement.
Exactly. 100%. And it's like, and like, listen, I think it's a very easy listen when it comes to like an album listening experience. I can definitely see myself in the next year when I'm looking for just like an album to listen to, right? I can definitely see myself going back to this one more than I have in the past, because now I'm more of an album listener than I was when like Pink Floyd was a little bit more closer to my nose. But it is like an album, right? Like there's maybe 3 songs on this.
You need time for it.
You need time for it. And like, listen, I got plenty of time now, and like now I'm more of an album listener, so I definitely can see myself revisiting this. I'll probably revisit The Wall again, but even though like I've always liked this more than The Wall.
So
I haven't even listened to The Wall.
Yeah.
Oh, buddy.
Also, are we gonna give this a grade?
Yes, but before we do, there's one thing I want to mention. For any of our listeners at home who are looking this up, listen to the original 1973 version. Roger Waters, frontman for Pink Floyd, has been putting out some trash remakes of some of the songs on this under his own solo like Spotify profile. Do not listen to them. They are bad.
Yeah.
Like real bad. It's like he's taken money and made it an 8-minute thing where he's like narrating like he's reading from a book or something. It's not good.
The only
Listen
one who
to
is
the original version.
Got the only song that has ever gotten better by the artist tinkering with it for 30, 40 years is probably Layla. Like every time Eric Clapton plays it now, it's slower and it gets better. Like, but yeah, no, I would definitely make sure you listen to the original 1973 pressing whenever you listen to this album, because I also think the brevity is like, because like for an album experience, it's like very tight. It's a very tight album. This is the opposite of Overstaying Your Welcome, right? I mean, I'd be actually interested to know what Purvis thinks about that as far as like sequencing on the album is, because like you're coming from it completely outside of a context.
Oh, I love it. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, like,
like I said, there's really no flaws to this album. The fact that they all flow into each other as well. This is just one big song.
Yeah.
Like in reality.
Yeah, no, and that's kind of how like a lot of prog rocky stuff is. Like 2112, Rush's magnum opus, it's literally that. It's like a story. It's like a science fiction Lord of the Rings story told over a 45-minute song. Like,
it just makes sense.
Yeah, right. But so before we get to grades, I got to ask one question. Do you pick this over Glow On and Ride the Lightning?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I get that.
Absolutely.
No, so do I. I probably don't listen to it as much to get the feelings I like. But yeah, no, this is definitely a better album than those two. It's not I don't like it more, but it's certainly better. It's certainly better. Like,
what should the order be? Jasper,
I feel like we should just do this all together now. I think we all know what this is going to be. And a 1 and a 2 and a A+.
plus.
Yeah, like, okay, we don't need
it's an S.
I forgot we do the pluses for A's. So
yeah,
A+.
like no A+.
S tier.
Yeah, this is
actually, yeah.
That's why I'm like, why are we giving
S tier?
Like, why are we giving this a grade? Like, it's so obviously like an A+ album. Like, and it's like That's all I gotta say. Like it was just so obviously an A+.
Hey, you know what's funny about this? You mentioned listening to Gambino earlier, like wanting to go and listen to that after this, and I in saying that the fact that we're giving this a grade, I thought about the skit from the end of camp where it's like, that's why I make it for everybody always, so everybody can't turn around and tell everybody. Yeah. Everybody already knows. Everybody already knows this is an A album. Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
But like it's so
obvious.
I agree.
Yeah.
Literally, the only commentary I had is the fact that like I have this weird thing where I'm always scared to go listen to classic albums. Like I haven't sat down and listened to Thriller, and like I haven't sat down and listened to like the. You haven't listened to Thriller? Sat down and listened to it. There's a long list of classic albums where I'm like, I understand the gravity of it.
Thriller's not even his best album.
Here's the thing. Oh my God. I'm like,
it's off the wall.
I almost get intimidated, and I know that sounds crazy.
I feel like,
I've been there.
I feel the same way about going back, especially like electronic music has always been very intimidating for me.
Bro.
Like early rock, like Led Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin's very intimidating for me, and also like they seem like fuck faces. So why do I even want to? But like,
all right, we're doing Led Zeppelin 4 next.
No,
hold on.
We're doing Led Zeppelin 4. Like,
but honestly though, I understood the gravity of this album when you said, I was like, God bless, I gotta cross this bridge. But like, I did it, and I'm glad I did. So like now I'm in the mode where like, okay, let's go through all the classic albums. We'll do a classic album like once a month or something.
Dude, I love that. I love that. All right,
I got archives for that.
All right, bet.
All right. Shall we do our recommendations?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'll go first. Foreshadowing. I'm back at the office like full time now. So if you've seen me in River North, walking around, I'm almost certainly listening to this album. It's the follow up to it is releasing later this year. I think it could be album of the year. That is "Pray for Paris" by Westside Gunn. I'm recommending 327 Westside Gunn featuring Joey Badass and Tyler the Creator. The most stacked song I've ever heard. Absolutely eminently replayable, even though "Pray for Paris" is definitely like an album. Like,
it's perfect.
It's perfect. Perfect song. Perfect vibe for just walking around the city on a rainy day.
Oh, yeah.
And just running in my girlfriend's room and yelling, "Hey, yo!"
Nice. Jasper?
I'm going with the Pink Floyd one for my first one, but it's not off of this album. We're doing "Comfortably Numb" off The Wall.
Okay.
Certified classic. You will know it when you hear it, Purvis.
Yeah.
It is.
Probably.
It's one of them.
It's in everything. It's everywhere all the time.
Yeah.
10 out of 10.
Bet. Okay. My first song is going to be "Grinding" by Clips. I don't know why. My cousin sent me this on Instagram, and he was just like, just think about all the times you're in the lunchroom with a pen and pencil and just making a beat. That is that song. So
I love that.
That would be my first one.
All right. So my next one, because I'm seeing Run the Jewels this week, I thought I recommend Run the Jewels a lot. So I was like, I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to recommend a song by the artist I've always wanted to feature with Run the Jewels. And now it's like literally a dream feature, but I got to say it. I'm recommending Versace by the Migos.
Hey.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a classic.
Yeah, that's a classic song. Not the Drake version.
That's like super early Migos too.
Yeah, dude, that was super early Migos. That was like when I learned about them.
Super early Migos.
Yeah, I was on the Migos pretty early actually. So.
All right, Jasper.
My last one is going to be another classic song, Rolling Stones, "Sympathy for the Devil."
What is it called?
Don't
Sympathy for the Devil.
Oh, "Sympathy for the Devil."
Don't do
You're gonna like this one. This song is actually featured in a Call of Duty game.
Oh, but
it's featured in like half of movie trailers. Like,
sure, that too,
like,
yeah. But
have you ever seen a Martin Scorsese movie?
Valid, yeah. It do be in those. But it's interesting. It's written from the perspective of the devil, and it's him like introducing himself, which is how it starts out, and talking about his achievements. So it's pretty cool.
Okay, but I feel like I know this song then.
You probably do.
You do.
You've probably heard it.
Yeah.
One would hope.
Your recommendations are like classics on top of the classic album.
Yep. We're going full speed ahead.
I'm not mad at it. I'm really not. I'll close this out then. It's another one that just came up on the timeline. I was like, man, this is a classic. But Cut It by OT Genius.
Oh my God.
The price is way too high. You need to cut it.
Dude, I remember one time when I was working overnight at a grocery store, like really struggling to survive. My manager, who was a dick, but like we were friendly, came up to me and was like, hey man, your hour's way too long. We need to cut it. I'm like, are you telling me my check's going to get smaller? He's like, yeah.
I hate him.
Boo.
Your hour's way too long. We need to cut it.
But a classic. Absolute classic.
Absolute classic. Absolute humdinger, I would say. All right. All right, guys. We're going to go probably smoke weed and listen to Dark Side of the Moon again.
Good call.
All right. But, all right. We're going to leave normally this time. Oh, Revolution.
Cut it!